So hey guys, Rosa being here, and better late than never, I finally got round to being able to film this, and today we're going to be doing my review of Doctor Who Series 11. So yeah, I've got my wee little book here, I've written down a few wee little notes here. I'm hoping to keep this review max about 20-25 minutes. I don't want to ramble on too long in this review. I feel like I covered a lot of what I think of Series 11 within my reactions. You know, I really decided this year I wanted to do more of the reviewing aspect whenever I decided to do the reactions to this series. And but yeah, let's review Series 11 of Doctor Who, which I feel has to be one of the most decisive series I think I've seen in a while in Doctor Who. I think in terms of just like completely dividing the fan base. You know, I think first point is what I've written down, how I'm going to structure this is I'm going to give you my overall opinion of the series. So for me, I think Series 11 for me was personally a mixed bag. You know, it's so this series is so decisive in the fact, like, you know, you got people that really loved Series 11, and then you got, on the other hand, you got people that really hated it, and I'm just kind of awkwardly stuck in the middle. I know there's quite a lot of people that are also kind of like in the middle, and I'm kind of glad, to be honest, because there's been a lot of name calling and throwing around insults, like, you know, the people that love it, like really love it, like if you say anything negative about the series, they'll call you like a woman hater or a misogynist or whatever. But then on the other side, you got like people calling, oh, if you like Series 11, you're a PC lefty, NPC, like, you know, non-playable character. People, like, you know, that use the key terms and all there, like, you know, people that you know, use these SJW, but I don't really take seriously. Anyone, like, you know, that throws around, I've seen a lot of these comments on my reactions, people using these key terms, and like, you know, I don't really take them seriously. I mean, there are valid reasons to not like Series 11, and then you got these people that are hell-bent on hating it no matter what. So yeah, there are legitimate people that, like, you know, generally don't like Series 11, and then you got the people that were always gonna hate it. You know, that, like, going into the series, I had a very positive outlook. You know, I was excited for change, but there were other people that, you know, were wanting to hate this from the get-go. You know, people that just didn't like the idea at all, weren't willing to give it a chance, and, you know, with every episode they were going in with this kind of like negative outlook, and that's all they were perceiving. Whether the episode was good or bad, but because they went in with this kind of attitude, it's what they got out of it in the end. So I feel, so yeah, there's this really big divide between the fandom currently in Doctor Who, and I'm just kind of awkwardly in the middle, to be honest. Like, but yeah, like, there are legitimate reasons not to like the series, but the whole name calling, or like, you know, SJW feminist ruin, I think that's just, you know, people, there are people who are feeding on this negativity. They're making videos and videos on the negativity, making money out of these videos, like, you know, people that are actively looking for the negatives or whatever. But yeah, like, I feel like, you know, I think everyone needs to just take, you know, a breather back and realise that at the end of the day, this is still just a TV show. I mean, we're all entitled to our own opinions, but but you know, it's common sense. Never insult the actress, never, you know, never attack people personally. You know, I've seen a lot of comments calling Jodie Whittaker names, you know, insulting her as a person, you know, like, you know, saying all these negative things, which you know, it really has exposed, like, you know, both the good side of the fandom and the bad side of the fandom. But yeah, anyway, I think I've talked enough about that. But overall, I would say Series 11 for me would be kind of disappointment. It was kind of like a disappointment. It's a very divisive series. I think when you compare what Chris Chibnall's writing in Broadchurch, like, which Broadchurch as a show I think was outstanding, but then when you compare it to Doctor Who, I sit and wonder, should Chris Chibnall just stick to shows like Broadchurch rather than Doctor Who? I feel like this series, it kinda missed something that was fundamental to Doctor Who. I feel like it didn't capture the same magic that we all know and love within Doctor Who, that like Russell T Davies and Steve Moffat, you know, they had very different writing styles, but they still managed to have an element of what makes Doctor Who Doctor Who. And I can't really, it's kind of hard to describe what that element is. It can mean many different things to many different peoples, but I feel like there was something lacking in this series that fundamentally took away from what makes it Doctor Who. But I think one of the positives for me is Jodie. Like, as an actor, I think most of the acting casts, the main characters, are fine. I think more of the issues are with the writing. Some dodgy acting in certain scenes. But overall, I think Jodie Whittaker's Doctor is good. I think more so, I've seen Jodie Whittaker act, so I know what she is perfectly capable of. So I think for me the issue with Jodie, much like Capaldi, there's a writing issue that is holding her Doctor back. Don't get me wrong, I love that she is a very happy Doctor, very energetic Doctor. I think we really needed that. You know, after Capaldi, who can I just say, I love Capaldi as a Doctor. I love how he's like all grumpy, but at the same time, he's soft and lovable underneath. But after the whole backlash with Series 8 and how many casual viewers just couldn't get on board with a less approachable Doctor, a less friendly Doctor, I really think we did need a more friendly Doctor, a Doctor where you kinda would like to hang around with, one that you could approach. So like, we couldn't have Jodie Whittaker being a miserable git, like, you know, oh, bent up with, you know, the Time War. So it's nice that she has this lovely attitude towards life and sees the best in people. Her Doctor really has taken in the advice of the 12th Doctor just before he regenerated. It feels like Jodie's Doctor has fundamentally taken in the core values of what the 12th Doctor said just before he regenerated. You know, laugh hard, be kind, you know, run fast. That I completely misquoted that in the wrong order, but you get what I'm saying. But yeah, it's, so I do like that aspect of a Doctor, but one thing I think is missing is the gravity. I think her Doctor is very much one note in a lot of scenes. I feel like Jodie Whittaker's Doctor lacks gravity. I don't really think it's less of a fault on Jodie's, but more on the fault of the writing. The way they've written her, they've made her a very self-conscious Doctor. She's a Doctor that doubts herself. You know, she constantly saying, did I do that right? Was that a bit harsh? You know, in one way it's kind of adorable, but then in another way it kind of undermines the Doctor. Because it kind of cuts away her authority. I feel like she should be a bit more confident in what she's saying and what she's doing, especially when she's speaking to the bad guy or the villains. I think when a Doctor's speaking to a villain and then as she walks away she's like, oh, did I do that right? It kind of undermines her authority, I feel, and it kind of cuts away that gravity that I feel that's been lacking throughout her Doctor throughout the whole series. I know she's meant to be a happy Doctor, but it would be nice if we got little hints of that darkness. I feel like overall her Doctor is trying to fit in. She's a Doctor that wants to be accepted. She wants to be loved, particularly by Graham, Ryan and Yas. She wants to fit in. She'll do anything. Oh, she'll go over to Yaz's for tea. She'll try and not be socially awkward, because this Doctor is very aware that she's socially awkward. She's pointing it out. She's like, she wants to improve. This is the type of Doctor who would actively go out and seek companions, whereas like Capaldi, he would just accidentally stumble upon people and, like, you know, and then maybe ask them to be companions after they had an adventure. With Jodie's Doctor, I feel like, you know, she spent time with some people and then, like, you know, really want them to be companions with her. She'd go out. She's a Doctor that I cannot see being alone. I don't think she would do very well being alone, her Doctor. But yeah, she's a very, I feel like Jodie's doctor, I'm starting to get the impression that she's starting to hide her true self. I don't know whether this is wishful thinking on my part, due to I want Jodie's doctor to just be slightly darker, rather than just always upbeat and happy. I feel like she's kind of trying to hide her darker side from her companions. I don't know if that's just me, but if you also feel that, please comment below. One of the issues though I have is that after a full series with her doctor, I don't still have a good grasp on who her doctor really is. You know, I don't really know what her doctor stands for. I don't really know what she wants. And I feel like I'm glad that she's staying on for another series, because I feel like she needs another series to finally get it, you know. I think Capaldi took 3 series until he finally got the balance between grumpy and the cruel random uncle on your mother's side. It took him, like, he went through 3 different variations of his own doctor within his own tenure. So I won't be surprised if Jodie Whittaker, you know, takes a little extra while to grasp fully who her doctor is and what she stands for. I feel like, so it's nice that they're maybe taking more time, but you know, I still don't know who her doctor is. I don't really, so yeah, I don't really have a strong grasp on who her doctor is. And another issue, I think, that it's more with the writing, but it could be like, I feel like her doctor gets overshadowed a lot in the series. I don't think one of the reasons like I don't have a good grasp on her doctor is because her doctor hasn't had enough development within the series. She's constantly getting overshadowed by the fact that she has 3 companions, and that is an issue I will speak on a little bit more in a few minutes. She's constantly being overshadowed by the character development of like Graham, who I think is one of the best companions in the series. But yeah, I feel like, you know, as an ensemble, her doctor doesn't stand out at all. She only like steps out to explain something, or you know, she comes out and she spurts all this technobabble dialogue and then she goes back to standing in. So yeah, she doesn't really stand out a lot from the main cast. And an interesting point to make is that Peter Davison mentioned how he thinks 3 companions is far too many in when he was talking about series 11, and he suffered from the same issue as like what's going on with the cast in Jodie Whittaker's one. You know, 1 companion always got left out, but one interesting thing about what the companions said, that even though they all made sure that they all got, you know, screen time and were all on equal footing, but one of the actresses said they were always aware that Peter Davison was the leading man, and that they always made sure to remind that. With Jodie Whittaker, I don't really think she's stepping up as the leading woman. I think she's being too generous and, you know, taking a back seat. And for series 12, I really want her, you know, to step up. I was hoping that one of the companions would die at the end of the series, because then that would force Jodie Whittaker, can't speak, because I was hoping one of the companions would die in the series, because then that would force her doctor to step up. That would force her doctor to actually go, hold on, wait, to reevaluate herself, to like to process what is going on. Like, I feel like she's not being much of a leading woman, and she kind of just gets blurred into the background. There was always this kind of joke when the companion gets mistaken for being the leader or the doctor, but you couldn't really do that joke now in series 11 because Jodie Whittaker's doctor doesn't really stand out from the rest of the companions, and as a character I wouldn't be surprised if someone didn't if someone mistook one of the companions for the doctor. It would generally be an easy mistake to make with how her doctor is being written. But yeah, on to the companions. As I mentioned, 3 companions is far too many. It's just there's not enough time to develop them all, particularly Yaz, who is routinely being left out throughout the entire... She is the one that is getting shoehorned with questions, why is she even there in the first place? Yeah, I think one of the weakest points for this series has been Yaz as a companion. She's just kind of there to ask the fundamental standard companion questions. She does what the plot requires little of her to do. Yaz as a character isn't even a character. She fundamentally lacks the mechanics of what makes a character. She doesn't have any real agenda. She doesn't exist on the level of action. You know, after the first episode, we don't really know much about her. She doesn't have any family conflicts that she brings on board the TARDIS that makes her interesting. She doesn't develop throughout the whole series much. She doesn't have an arc that's as noticeable as Ryan and Graham, particularly with Graham. So I feel like if you were to remove Yaz, it would make no difference to the series. Even within the episode that was meant to focus on Yaz, the Demons of the Punjab, she took more of a back role. Yaz as a character is more reactive than she is active, and I think that's one of the weakest issues. But that isn't just with her. I think because there are so many companions, you have to take in 3 different reactions as well as the Doctor's. So that kind of slows down a lot of pace, where you've got action and then reaction of the characters, and then they're all reacting to each other, and then you got this endless stream of dialogue and all the dialogues that just kind of like, you know, wear it down. Obviously my favourite companion of the whole series was Graham. Unashamedly, Graham. I love him to pieces. I'm glad he's staying on for another series, because quite frankly he was one of the driving forces of the series. If we could get an episode with just Jodie's Doctor and Graham, I would be continuously happy. Graham has a lovely character arc. His reasoning for travelling with the Doctor due to Grace's death, due to wanting to look after Ryan, you know, he has a full story arc. How his grief was portrayed, it was beautifully done. So those were one of the stronger aspects of the series, and Chris Chibnall's writing, he knows how to write grief, and I'm glad, you know, characters didn't die and come back. You know, Grace is not, you know, a random spectre bouncing around in an spear. She's just a figment of Graham's imagination, a ghost to deal with his grief. And I thought the most powerful moments in this series had to be with Graham dealing with his grief, and you know, having to come to terms of what type of man he is. Would he go out and kill in cold blood the creature responsible for his wife's death? I'll get onto that moment in a little bit, but you know, as companions, Ryan, he gets good development along with Graham. But I see a lot of people sometimes get annoyed at Ryan, or like, you know, they find him unlikable, or they don't think his actor's really good. I don't really mind Ryan. I don't have any strong opinions on Yaz or Ryan, but if I had to lose one, it would probably be Yaz. But the problem is, if we lost Yaz, and like, say for example Yaz was killed off in like a resolution or the finale, it wouldn't have much impact, because Yaz, she didn't have much of a character, she didn't have much development. We didn't really know who Yaz was. So like, it wouldn't be emotional if she was to get offed. You know, like, would the Doctor even notice she was gone if she got killed? She'd be like, so wasn't there someone else? So there's Graham, there's Ryan. Was there someone there? Oh, I don't know, Doc, I can't remember. It'll come to me. Like, you know, I can just imagine that happening. Like, that's how little of an impact I think Yaz made so far. But yeah, in terms of the episodes, I went into, I think, a lot of detail during my reactions, so I'm not going to go into as much. So as an overview, I think the first episode, The Woman Who Fell to Earth, I think it did enough of what it needed to do. It introduced the companions, it introduced the Doctor. It had an interesting enough plot to keep you engaged, so I think it wasn't the best introduction ever, but it did enough, I feel. I think parts of it dragged and got bombed down with dialogue and dialogue. Again, one thing that's apparent in Series 11 is Chris Chibnall's ability to use technobabble and have these really long breaks of dialogue that just go nowhere. I liked the whole family dynamic of the series, something I really missed within Moffat's writing, but at parts it really did drag, and at some parts I do kind of miss Moffat's, like if Stephen Moffat was writing this episode, it would be bum 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 bum. There would be always something happening. So with the way Chris Chibnall writes it, he has like, you know, so he has character development, dialogue, action, break, character development, dialogue, action, break, you know, he kind of splits it up, and sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But, you know, as an episode, I didn't really feel I knew Jodie's Doctor after the first episode, but then I didn't know her for, I don't think I really grasped her Doctor for the whole series. Again, because of Free Companions, we didn't really get time to develop Yaz after the first episode, and I feel like we spent less time on on getting to know Jodie's Whittaker's Doctor in the first episode. But I don't really mind the first episode, you know, delving more into the companion's life before the Doctor, you know, storms in and ruins their nice, lovely, normal life forever. Because how a character is, a companion is set up is fundamentally influences their whole story arc. Again, as shown with Yaz, because she wasn't set up really properly within the first episode, she didn't really get a character arc throughout the series because she constantly was kind of left to the side to be a background role. So, but I feel like The Woman Who Fell to Earth was a good enough start. It didn't need to be brilliant. It just needed to do enough to grasp people, and I feel like that's what it did. The Ghost Monument, the second episode, I don't really like that episode a lot. It was a bit boring. I thought it was like a boring version of Rat Race. Like, I enjoyed the start of it and how they got onto the planet. Visually, it was stunning. Again, I love that this series, you know, production-wise, I love how it took a big, massive step up. You know, it's nice to see Doctor Who now being able to compete with other TV shows in terms of production value. You know, it's nice that it has more of a cinematic feel. But yeah, the Ghost Monument, I felt dragged a lot in areas. There was a clear formula of, you know, this episode took it by in stages, you know. They got on the planet, they hit these different checkpoints, so they get to here, then they get to here, and in between you get these dialogues and these moments. But, you know, it would have been nice if there were other people on the planet trying to do this race, not just the two characters who I've completely forgot the names of. You know, I wish they showed other contenders of this race dying on the planet just to show how vicious this planet called Desolation can really be. But yeah, I feel like Ghost Monument was just a bit of a drag. You know, I feel like, you know, when the Timeless Child line was mentioned, everybody, including myself, immediately jumped upon that and was hoping this was going to be a series arc, but it turns out it wasn't. It was just another name for the Doctor. The episode Rosa, I absolutely loved, and this is the episode that got universally praised by literally everyone. I feel like Rosa was a very good episode. The way they handled the issues, and, you know, with Ryan, with Yaz, you know, with showing this, they didn't shy away, which is what I was really happy about. I loved the scene where Ryan and Yaz were, you know, behind the dumpsters, and they were talking about racism and how, you know, it's not completely gone in the world, but, you know, little changes make, you know, a big difference, and, you know, even small changes or small victories are still victories. I thought Rosa was a lovely episode, very emotional, very well done. Again, this episode, again with the Woman Who Fell to Earth, the Ghost Monument, the villain was the weakest point, I feel. The the guy who I will just refer to as their space racist, I think that's how he's going to be referred to forever. He wasn't intimidating enough. Even within that scene where, you know, he tried to strangle the Doctor, which was a good scene, I may add, and some nice little nods to, you know, previous Doctor Who continuity. He just wasn't, you know, threatening enough. He was just like, you know, this guy with a leather jacket and, you know, these neatly styled hair. He just kind of stand around and just stared awkwardly at people, I feel like. I think it would be more interesting if we never see him in the episode. I feel like they either could have just not had a villain and just focused solely on, you know, the racism and yet, like, you know, people and prejudice being the real villain. Or they could have had, we don't see him, we never find out who's actually influencing the timeline and who's trying to stop Rosa Parks sitting on the bus. I feel like if we left it to as a mystery, or like people compared this episode to Quantum Leap, which yeah, I understand, because it did feel like Quantum Leap where they had to preserve, you know, history. But yeah, it would have been interesting if we never see the villain and we just know there's someone trying to change time. And I think that would have been a lot more powerful, because then it makes you wonder, well, who's got that amount of power to change history without actually being there, or, you know, make all these changes before the Doctor gets there. But yeah, again, a wonderful story, very heartfelt, and it's arguably Rosa is one of my favourite Doctor Who episodes of all time in the new series. Again, we're going to jump through these. The Arachnids of the UK. If you're not afraid of spiders, I don't think this episode would really do much for you. Since I was, the effects on the spiders were great. I just feel like this episode didn't have an ending. It just ended, like, you know, abruptly. It was very unresolved. You know, what about that spider that was in that flat? You know, are there still many spiders loose on the in Sheffield that are, you know, going around munching people? Again, the villain, who we just called Discount Trump because he basically was, he wasn't very threatening at all. Again, he was just kind of there. He was just there to be annoying, basically. And again, Yaz's police training could have came in handy during this episode, particularly when two American guys were pointing guns at her face within the, you know, two guys with guns in the United Kingdom pointing them at her. I feel like, you know, her police training might have kicked in, or, you know, she might have mentioned, why did they have guns? Were they authorized to have them? Did they have a license? But yeah, again, that episode, I was enjoying it up to the ending where it felt unresolved, and again, unremarkable villain. This that Trump guy wasn't an unremarkable villain, just cliche. And, you know, the spiders were like the better part of the episode, but they weren't really the biggest threat in the world. And, you know, and now we come up to the one that's universally just, you know, hated. I can't even pronounce this one. Let's just call it the conundrum one. The one with the wee bloody flippin' snitch-like character that just eats and eats and eats. Again, this is where, you know, it's just, this episode was just boring. It was just filled with lots of technobabble and, you know, bogged down with all this dialogue. I feel like again, one of the weakest aspects of Chris Chibnall's, he tells more than he shows, rather than show, not tell. This episode I think he should have used the more show rather than tell, because this episode was just bogged down so much with so much dialogue. I haven't seen it since its first air, so yeah, I'm breezing through these episodes because I'm sitting trying to remember half of them, because I haven't seen some of them since they first aired, but I just remember not liking this one at all. Like, my dad got so bored he just flipped over to the other channel. The creature wasn't really threatening. I feel like it was a very deliberate choice for Chris Chibnall to make it cute. I feel like they could have they could have made it more scary. I feel like they could have made the twist at the end that the creature actually looked and was just a cute wee thing. We could have had it where we never see what the creature looks like until it gets blowing out the airlock, and then that could have been a good joke. What? We were scared of that. Because they mentioned throughout the episode that it was a hospital ship, but there was no signs or any way to get out. Like, it was nice to see the doctor, you know, being vulnerable. She was injured, you know, not there, but she mentioned how it was very confusing to find your way around because there was no signs to tell you which way you were going. So I thought, you know, they were all going to be trapped in here and they were all going to be chased by this monster. And they were all going to get lost in the ship that you can't really, like, the ship was meant to be huge and, like, you know, something that you can easily get lost in, but they didn't really go with that. I feel like this series has a lot of missed opportunities. They have a lot of good ideas, but they just don't execute them properly, or, like, you know, they don't like, you know, make these bold choices, or, like, you know, they go with the safer option. So yeah, the Tangerine Conundrum, I feel, I don't rate it very highly. It's one of my least favourites of the series, if not one of my least favourites with the finale. But yeah, the next episode, The Demons of the Punjab, I thought this was a lovely episode. A lovely little episode. The historicals this year were brilliant. I feel like if they worked better on the sci-fi elements of the series, then the historical episode would be even better, because historical episodes of Doctor Who, they're kind of rare. They should be seen as like a treat. They should be seen as a break. I feel like by the time we got to the historical episodes, because we've been so bogged down by the lack of outstanding villains or memorable villains, by the time we get to these historical episodes that don't focus so much on alien villains, more on humans and the bad side of humans, I feel like people appreciate these episodes less because of the fact that we were kind of tired at this point with the lack of villains in the previous episodes. But yeah, I feel like the Demons of the Punjab was a very lovely episode, very heartfelt one. I feel like I did learn something from this episode. Again, the weakest parts were the alien parts. I feel like this episode should have been purely historical. I feel like it should have been brave and just had a purely historical. Get rid of the testimony aliens. I feel like they were only there to give the Doctor something to ponder over. I feel like they just wasted time where you could have just developed more of the family, of the brother, you know, because that's clearly what the episode was about, you know. People turning against one another, mobs and frenzies, people fighting over, you know, endless violence. So, you know, so I feel like if we just got rid of that and just kept it pure historical, this episode would have been perfect. But, you know, I rate this episode very, very highly. Again, one of my little criticism is that Yaz took a back role in this episode, even though it's meant to be about her. It would have been nice if she challenged a bit more. You know, when Rose went back in time to see her father, she made a mistake. It would have been nice if Yaz, you know, maybe even actively tried to change time, even if it meant, you know, messing up her own timeline. It would be nice, you know, if Yaz had more of an active role, you know, because fundamentally, it doesn't change Yaz as a person, you know, after this episode. It doesn't make any difference what she's saying in that episode. Doesn't make any difference to how she approaches anything in the next episodes. It doesn't really do much for her character. Like, it would be no different if her granny just told her the story whenever she was ready to, rather than Yaz going on ahead and living it. But yeah, she does get this new appreciation for her grandmother, but it just would have been nice if we got a little bit more development. Now hold on, I'm going to turn on the light here because it's getting dark in my room. I'm going to turn on the light. Is that better, guys? Okay, yeah, sorry about that. It was getting dark and I noticed that it might be a bit hard to see me, so I just turned on the light there. Again, so next episode we got Kerblam. I actually really enjoyed this episode. Can I just say, thank Christ the villain died in this episode. So yeah, it's nice, like, you know, I noticed a lot of people were saying how all the villains were kind of got away with it throughout the series, and a lot of people had a theory that, you know, oh, this couldn't be a coincidence, all the villains getting away. Maybe it was like, you know, someone accumulating information of the new Doctor in order to take her down. But, you know, obviously that didn't happen, which is a shame because that would have been a good idea. But it's nice that Charlie actually got his comeuppance by his own design, you know. But yeah, and it's nice to see the Doctor was, you know, she wasn't happy by the end of it. It wasn't victory for her. My own personal headcanon is though, is that she obviously knew that he was going to die. You know, she could have teleported Charlie out of there, but she didn't. It's just my own personal headcanon that 13 didn't. You know, I do want to see a little bit of darkness within 13, as I mentioned before. But yeah, I thought the robots were sinister. How they were always in the background was very creepy, so I thought that the episode did good in building up the creepiness of the robots and how especially that they were designed with the eyes. It was a nice little thing. I realised how the system wanted the Doctor to help, and the system put the Doctor with Charlie in you know, maintenance, but because of the Doctor she switched roles with Graham, and so it took longer for her to work out who was the villain. So that was a nice little thing that I noticed, and I thought that was really nice. Kerblam was like a decent episode. It was decent fun. But yeah, my main point of that, it's nice to see that the villain finally got his comeuppance and, you know, died and didn't get away with it. The Witchfinders, I thought this was an enjoyable episode. Again, you know, if this was in any other series, sorry, if this was in any other series, I probably would have enjoyed it more because it would have been like a nice little break, a nice little fun episode. But again, I feel like there was a lot of missed potential with this episode to be a little bit more scary. Again, the main issue was the villains. The amount of time I've said in this review the main issues with the villains, I swear, take a shot every time I say that, or have. You'd probably be drunk by the end of this. Again, the issue was with the villains. At the beginning they were genuinely terrifying, where they were repossessing and reanimating the corpses. That was genuinely a nice imagery. But you know, by the time they got fully revealed, I didn't like how they explained to the Doctor their entire plan. You know, it was always a running joke of, you know, it's like, oh, tell me your whole plan. One day that'll work. And you know, there's just like, we are the Morak weeping here trapped under this tree for blah 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 blah, and we're gonna take over your world and blah 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 blah. You know, I feel like that just ruined any threat towards them. You know, it just, you know, Alan as King James, I thought he was wonderful. He really made this episode what it was. If he wasn't in this episode, I doubt this episode would be as fun as it was. So a nice performance from him, and he really elevated the episode. It was nice for the Doctor to get accused as a witch, but you know, not surprising since she waves that sonic screwdriver like a bloody wand half the time. Yeah, I noticed a lot of people say, why does Jodie have to wave it like a wand? I know, I do want to know how she uses that subtly. She can't. But yeah, I feel like though the resolution was very rushed. Like, there was like 5 minutes left of this episode, and like, you know, we still haven't solved the villain plot, and then, you know, I feel like the villains were very easily defeated, and it was all very rushed. Like, you know, it could have maybe done well as a two-parter, or it should have just been better paced, the episode, because again from having an episode that didn't have an ending in Arachnids of the UK, we had an episode that had a very rushed ending, and it just left me going, I kinda wanted more. But yeah, so the next episode, It Takes You Away, I was very hyped for this episode because I seen a lot of good reviews for it, and to be honest, I liked this episode, but it didn't deserve all that hype and good reviews. It Takes You Away, it started off good. I loved, you know, the mystery and the build-up of this monster. It was bonkers in just the right way, I feel. A lot of people didn't like the talking frog at the end, but you know what? Doctor Who has done some weird shit, and you know what? At this point, I just roll with it. The whole concept of a mirror world, and you know, the nice little details of the writing on the guy's t-shirt being reversed. You know, I love the idea of this episode. Again, the characters in this, the dad wasn't likable at all. He can't, we know that he was, you know, in grief missing his wife, but he abandoned his blind daughter and created a monster to terrify her into staying indoors. Not good parenting. That's what's going to get you a knock on the door from social services. Again, Grace coming back to haunt Graham. Again, the best parts of these episodes was the scenes with Graham and Grace, because they were very emotional. I think Bradley Walsh has been one of the standout stars of this series. Seeing his grief and, you know, coming to terms with, you know, that isn't really Grace. I feel like there was a missed opportunity in this episode to tempt the Doctor. Even if you couldn't get an actress or anything, you still could have used, you know, voice recordings from previous episodes of a previous companion or person. I think it would have been a good opportunity, instead of taking the form of a frog, to take a form of someone the Doctor loved and knew. Because the Soul Attracts wants to attract people into her world. And what better way than to tempt the Doctor? I feel like they had a missed opportunity to play with the emotions of the Doctor, to get some emotional range out of Jodie's Doctor, because I feel like her Doctor hasn't been challenged enough throughout this entire series. It's all about the development of the companions, but her Doctor, I think particularly, needs a little bit more development and needs more gravity, that's more challenging. Like, you know, you could have done it where we never see the person, we just hear their voice. You know, we could have had like a scene where we focus solely on the Doctor, the camera lens on her, and we hear the voice of a past companion, or even Susan. We don't see her. The Doctor's just like, no, turns away from them, and they're just like, you will not tempt me by taking on the voice of someone I love or hold dear to me. And you know, I think, and then the Soul Attracts turns into a talking frog maybe, because then it realises it's not going to work. You know, tempting the Doctor in such a way is not going to get her to stay with you. I feel like it just would have been nice, you know, for a little bit more emotional impact. It's just, again, a lot of the series for me is a little bit of a missed opportunity where, you know, they could have done this, they could have had like a little nod. But yeah, it takes you away, was, you know, just bonkers enough in the right way, I feel. It was a good episode, but not deserving of all the hype it got. But there was a nice little, you know, scenes with the flesh-eating moths. I thought that was very scary. You know, there was a lot of bodily horror in this series, you know, from Tim Shaw ripping out people's tooth, you know. There's a shot of him within the first episode of, you know, with Kebab Guy, where, like, you know, you see him, like, the outline of his hand making this ripping gesture with the, you know, you can clearly, like, you know, fill in the gaps of him ripping the guy's jaw open and then taking the tooth out. And then with this episode, you got the guy, the alien guy, being eaten alive by flesh-eating moths, and then you see the moth come out of his eye socket. I thought that was very grotesque, and I went, oh, that's dark, Doctor Who. So yeah, they had these dark moments, like, visually. So I was just hoping a bit more if we got like just little hints to remind us that we are looking at a 2,000-year-old alien that has seen everything and lost everything. So I just thought we could have had a little bit more of that. And okay, but now to the last episode, I'm not even going to pronounce this. The Battle of Ranskor Kulos something. I can't pronounce this episode. I don't even know why they called it the Battle of. They should have called it the Talk About the Battle of. Because there is no battle in this finale. They talk about it, but we don't see it. And like, where to begin with this? I feel like this is one of the most disappointing episodes I've ever seen of Doctor Who. This didn't feel like a finale at all. Resolution felt more like a finale than this one. It just felt like you could have slotted it in anywhere, and Tim Shaw just wasn't a memorable enough villain to bring back for the finale. He was just too easily defeated, he just wasn't intimidating, and I wish they just had a proper different villain. I did get a lot of flashbacks, or like, you know, it reminded me a lot of the plot of Stolen Earth, you know, taking the planets, and, you know, Christian even, you know, made a reference to that. It would have been nice, you know, just like, you know, the tension wasn't, there was a lot of lack of tension within the series. It was nice that we finally got to see more of the TARDIS, but it would have been nice if we got, like, you know, when the Earth was being stolen or being attempted to be removed, it would be nice if we got reactions of people on Earth reacting to this big massive laser beam coming out of the sky and trying to engulf the planet. It would have been nice if we seen the world reacting to it, to see this as a threat. But we didn't get that. I felt like the most interesting aspect of this episode was the conflict between the Doctor and Graham wanting to kill Tim Shaw, which I wish he did. I feel like that was the most interesting thing. And I feel like the Doctor was being very hypocritical. One thing I don't understand about 13th Doctor is how she seems to have this moral high ground all of a sudden. With, like, you know, where she's acting all perfect or don't kill when she's killed before. I feel like the scene where 13 tells Graham go back to the TARDIS, you know, I feel like she could have handled that a lot differently. You know, the Doctor's being where Graham was in that moment. You know, she has killed in cold blood. She has felt that anger. She's, you know, experienced it. So I thought her Doctor could have dealt with it more compassionately. You know, said, you know, Graham, I know exactly what you're feeling. I know you think you want to do this, but you don't. Killing in cold blood will not bring your wife back, nor will it bring you peace. You know, when you kill, it'll just make it easier for you to do it the next time. You think that you won't kill again, but you may do it again. Once you've done it once, you can do it again. You know, I feel like, you know, the Doctor could have handled it a lot better, and, you know, being this moral high ground that she's got of no killing or whatever, like, you know, it seems to be very stressed in this series, you know, more so than any others. That makes me kind of question it. Again, I wish Graham killed him. I wish it would have added layers. It would have been a bit of conflict. I wish he would have killed him and didn't tell the Doctor. Him and Ryan kept the secret. That would have been an interesting conflict if it was ever exposed within series 12. If, you know, if the secret gets out. So I wish Graham did kill Tim Shaw, because it would have added something to his character. I feel like, well, I love Graham, but it would, you know, it would have been interesting. Like, you know, the Doctor has had companions that I have killed. You know, Leela, you know, walked around carrying knives. So this whole concept of the Doctor, you know, saying, don't do this, don't do that, you know, oh, well, you're new. Like, she even addressed that she is a bit of a hypocrite by saying, well, oh, but why are you giving us squares and all the fight? Well, it goes, well, you were new then, and plus you're using it now on walls, or, like, you know, getting into places rather than on people. So, you know, they did kind of address the Doctor being hypocritical in the episode. But again, overall, this episode was just a big disappointment. It didn't feel like a finale. It just felt like you could have slotted it in anywhere. The most interesting part was the conflict between the Doctor and Graham, and it just would have been nice if Graham went for it and killed Tim Shaw, because, you know, it was going to be predictable that he wasn't going to do it. So it would be nice if they surprised us and Graham did it. Again, the whole thing with the Doctor and Yaz taking off the wee things, it didn't have much of an impact. All gave the Doctor and Yaz was like a bit of a headache. It would have been nice if Yaz forgot who the Doctor was and they started fighting, you know, create some more conflict within this episode. Because, like, they made a big deal about how the planet twists your thoughts and makes you forget. So in that brief moment, they could have had either the Doctor or Yaz forget each other and start fighting, or, you know, and then they had to quickly try and resolve all that, or the Ooks could have, you know, helped. But overall, it didn't feel like a finale, and, you know, it was a bit of a disappointing end to an overall disappointing series. Resolution, the one that just aired, one of the reasons why I held off doing this review is because I was waiting for Resolution, because a lot of people said that this felt like the real finale, and to be honest, it kind of did. This felt more of a finale than that episode, the previous episode. As a Dalek episode, I thought resolution was really good. Not the best. A lot of people loved it, and then some people just absolutely hated that episode. I was a bit more in between. The concept of the Dalek controlling a human, I thought that was very interesting. Although I have to say, that character, she murdered 2 police officers not there. She broke into a high security building. Her life is ruined. I don't know what she's gonna do, because they're gonna be able to track her down. But yeah, and I seen a lot of comments of people saying, oh, she spent more time pretending to be a police officer than Yas did in the whole series, and I couldn't stop laughing because that is so true, But yeah, it was nice to see a Dalek finally kill people. I know I sound so horrible and morbid, but it was just nice. It was nice, it sticks true to Chibnall's promise of not having any previous villains in Series 11, but nobody said anything about the New Year special. So it was nice to bring them back and do them differently, it wasn't really a redesign of the Daleks, it was the Dalek building its own armour casing using metals on Earth. So that was a very interesting idea. Again, I just wish there was more gravity with Jodie's Doctor coming face to face with a Dalek. I know Gallifrey is, not destroyed, but the Daleks still, are responsible for all the destruction, all the things, that happened in Gallifrey. Her family are still, dead. She's lost a lot because of the Daleks. So it would have been nice if I just, got this more serious side to Jodie, rather than her, shrugging it off and, being playful and dealing with, situations in that same fashion that show. So it would have been nice if we got a little bit more gravity when facing the actual Dalek. But the scene with Ryan and his dad in the cafe, for me, that went on far too long. I was sat there going, can we get back to the main part, please? Because that's what I want. Everyone just wanted to see the Dalek. So yeah, it dragged a bit. It was a bit unnecessary at times. We could have cut that scene in half. We could have shortened it a bit and still got to the point. So the whole thing with Ryan and his dad just went on for far too long. But overall, I really liked Resolution, and it felt like the finale that we didn't get for Series 11. But yeah, overall, I didn't, sorry if I didn't go into as much detail, but I think because I don't want to repeat myself too much, I feel like I did cover a lot within my reactions, and I don't want to keep on talking and talking and talking. But yeah, overall, Series 11 for me was a lot of missed opportunities, but I don't feel it was as bad as everyone's saying. You can love it or you hate it. I just thought it was a bit of a mixed bag, but ultimately I loved Graham. I loved his relationship with Ryan. I do love Jodie's Doctor. I feel like she just needs more development and more time to shine, and for the rest of the cast to be aware that she is the leading woman, so give her that chance. So I want Chris Chibnall to give Jodie Whittaker this chance. I want Jodie Whittaker to say, okay, I am the leading woman. It's my time to shine, not blend in the background. I think Jodie Whittaker's being too generous. I know you're all an ensemble. I love how the TARDIS team is kind of like a family. But it would be nice if, she steps a little bit above it, where we can clearly say that she is the Doctor. So overall, it's still a mixed bag, but hopefully Chris Chibnall takes on this feedback and improves it once Series 12 comes on. I think Series 12 will be Series 12 will really show what's really going on. How well it does in viewing figures, time will tell. So yeah, those are just that's kind of like a quick overview of my thoughts on Series 11. Not bad, but not great. Just, I'm somewhere in the middle. If you absolutely hated it, fair enough. If you absolutely loved it, good for you. If you're one of those people that, just spew out those keywords and hate and, name call, please don't do that in this comment section, please. But But yeah, those are just my thoughts. I hope all of you that have been subscribed to me have been enjoying my reaction so far to Series 12, and I hope you all stuck with me. Sorry, Series 11, I hope you all stuck with me with Series 12. But yeah, so yeah, I've been Rosa. Post your comments down below what you thought and what you hope for in Series 12, and I shall see you next time. Peace.